This video came up on my For You page. Why does Hasan Piker dress like that? Jamelle is the guest. Okay. I'm excited to watch it. Percia Verlin is the creator. Let's check it out. Cause you know, we do a lot of commentary on fashion, how everything is political. And then we do philosophy through pop culture. So we're also doing the philosophical perspective of how you present matters, because it does, not in a judgmental white supremacist way or an ableist way or any of those ways, in a different kind of way, in that nothing is an accident, even if you're not thinking about it.
Hasan Piker is one of America's most watched political streamers. He has almost 10 million subscribers across all social media platforms. He streams for about 6 to 8 hours a day, almost every day, about the political news of the moment from his leftist point of view. Just this year, he participated in a humanitarian aid mission to Cuba. He got banned from entering the UK ahead of several speaking engagements, and he's been featured on Fox News more times than anyone can count. But most importantly, he has started wearing suits. In May 2026, you can see the jacket and tie become Piker's consistent uniform. This is not just a moment of personal style exploration. I mean, generally when public figures have a fashion makeover, they're doing it for a very specific reason. To help figure out what Piker's wardrobe change might reflect about his place in American politics and how other political actors use clothing as a political tool, I recruited an expert with much better credentials than my own.
I'm Jamelle Bouie. I'm a columnist for the New York Times opinion section, and I co-host the podcast Unclear and Press.
Didn't I use Jamelle when I was doing my first reference of this whole thing, right? I brought him up because he is so fashionable. He's so specific. He's got that perfect like NPR aesthetic. And that's why I brought him up. So I'm so excited to see him in this collaboration because I think he does it really, really well. And I think Hasan is like kind of like a younger person in this realm where I don't think he quite knows his style yet. So he's attempting to figure it out versus somebody who does know what they're doing.
In Danger with my buddy John Gans.
And just briefly say what you cover generally in your work.
Yeah, so I cover politics and history is the way I say it. What that means is that I tend to write about contemporary politics, American politics specifically, with an eye towards and informed by kind of an academic reading of American history.
So here we are in the midst of the second year of Trump's second presidency, and the U.S. is getting close to some very high-stakes midterm elections. The Democrats think that they have a chance of taking back the House, the Senate, or both. Republicans have been fighting back by doing their best to neuter the Voting Rights Act and pass a law that could disenfranchise millions of voters. And on top of that, local political battles are happening all over the country, right? These races for mayor, these races for governor, they are very much indications of where the political energy is heading. Hasan Piker is all over every bit of it. He has candidates and politicians that he believes in on his show all the time. According to Politico, he said he is just trying to identify wonderful candidates that are more responsive to the needs of the masses and push for them and get them elected, connect them with my audience. He has, I would say, recently become more mainstream, not in terms of his political views, but he has infiltrated in terms of being, though he says he's not, like a kingmaker in terms of influencing elections potentially, and also just like...
I wonder if that's in reference to the Trevor Noah conversation, because even Trevor was like, why are you acting like you're not popular? Like, why are you acting like people, like you're not the guy? And I think it is a false sense of humility. Like, I don't think it's real humility. I think Hasan doesn't want the responsibility. I think he knows there's so much responsibility in Hasan Piker's position, which has been my only criticism of his position in that in terms of power. But I think he's more or less trying to avoid the responsibility because it is a big deal. I mean, gosh, if he feels the heat now, imagine if he actually embraced it. Imagine if he actually took accountability and said, oh yeah, I am... what I say matters in a really, really big way. Then he would also have to contend with the interview he just did about a month ago about his misogyny problems. He would actually have to contend with the reality that he also still has a lot of unpacking to do, right?
Fox News has taken an interest in him. He's become like a...
Or maybe not. I guess he could just be a political marketer at that some point. So silly of me to assume he would be more introspective if he took responsibility. But I guess it would take a level of introspection to take on the responsibility. So maybe there's something there.
A real person that people have opinions on, that media and also countries have opinions on. How do you feel? What do you think changed?
As far as I can tell, his shift towards wearing suits like predates somewhat the increased attention, or maybe they're happening around the same time, that he is both participating in electoral politics, sort of saying, I support this person, doing rallies with them. The candidate Chris Rabb, I believe is his name. I believe Piker did a rally with him, having candidates on his stream, kind of giving them a chance to speak and kind of develop what's called earned media. People are paying attention to it. That all happened. That's all been happening, I believe, at the same time they started wearing suits. So I'm not sure what the causation here is, but I do think it's clear that he wants to be seen as like a serious political figure, not even mainstream, like the wrong word, like a serious political figure.
Okay, so this is interesting because Hasan also denies this, and though I think that maybe have changed recently, but he does that thing too where he goes like, oh, I'm just a guy. And that's where Trevor Noah's like, but you're not just the guy. He goes, no, I'm just the guy. And he goes, but you're not just the guy. So that's why it feels really funny for him to say, I'm just a guy in a recent interview. And also for other people to observe, like, you obviously want to be taken seriously, right? And he's like, no. I'm just here for shits and giggles. Okay, then what are you doing here? Why are you taking the space from somebody else? And that's why I say, like, know who you are in the story. Like, I know what role I'm playing. Do you know what role you're playing? And sometimes with Hasan, it does feel like he doesn't know. And why would he? I mean, he's 35. He just became eligible to run for the presidency. But he's not old, but he's not young either. And he's been in this game too long and he's too famous not to sort of sit with himself and say, what am I doing here? What's my role?
Whether or not you would consider him mainstream, someone whose views and platform should be taken seriously, not as a venue for entertainment, but as a place for candidates, for journalists, for whomever to watch, observe, and take seriously. And that's how I read the move toward.
I almost feel like sometimes Hasan wants to play like he's XQC, where XQC met with Trump, or Aiden Ross did the stream with Trump, and he almost wants to be like, I'm just an entertainment guy, but you're not. You're not Aiden Ross. You're not XQC, who is just gamers who the president utilized for marketing. These candidates, like, people believe you. Like, people, if Hasan says to vote, people might follow him. Now, there's a responsibility there that I certainly would never want. So I get it, but we do need good people in these positions telling the movement where to go, because we all have full-time jobs doing other things we're doing, not only our means of making money, but the full-time job we're doing for our communities, for our families, for the other things we have going on. So we do need the people in these positions to be serious about their research, to be serious about what candidate they're telling us to vote for. And we need to make these decisions. So sometimes I get a little confused about whether or not they understand that's their position, including Kyle Kalinske or anybody else. Like, if your whole stream, your whole vibe, your whole content is, I do politics and I specifically research candidates and I specifically tell people who to vote for, then the responsibility is very much a big deal. It absolutely is a big deal. And that's why, again, I don't want that job, but if they want that job and they want to become rich doing that job, then they have to be held to a standard that's pretty high and they have to be taken seriously. So it's interesting that the observation is that he wants to be a serious candidate, or I'm sorry, a serious commentator, a serious voice. But then there's like a game that's being played here.
Wearing tailored clothing. And I would say, I mean, just as someone who does work at maybe the definition of establishment mainstream media, it's not even that common amongst like regular ass journalists that just wear tailoring. Like I'm kind of a weird exception in that regard. You know, one has to think about what tailoring communicates to people, right? Like not even the business suit. Because I think what's interesting about what Hasan's wearing, it's like it's not necessarily traditional business suits, right? Like, so it's not even a business suit. It's tailoring itself sends a particular message. It sends the message that I am put together, that I put thought in my appearance in a way.
To be fair, I agree 100% with what he's saying. Hasan is also uniquely built. He has a very awkward body, and tailoring is the only solution to a body like this, because clothes are not made for Hasan Piker's body. And it's been a big struggle of his, right? His head is small, his arms are long, he's got a very tall body. And so you got to find, it's very difficult for, petite people, me, 5'1", and Hasan Piker, who's bigger and differently proportioned. So he kind of has to get his suits tailored, but by getting it tailored, it also then signals a message of like, oh, you got money. Because I don't know about you, but nobody I know gets anything tailored unless they have money. I just don't know anybody who can afford buying clothes and getting it tailored. So as a West Asian, there's plenty of West Asians with money who get their stuff tailored, including my parents who have gotten stuff tailored, including my parents who've got my stuff tailored as a kid. But that was for nicer clothes too. It wasn't for everyday clothes. It was for like special clothes, like a wedding dress or something very important. You know what I mean? And even then, that felt like, whoa, like that felt like a big deal, right?
That might signal that I put thought into the things I'm saying to you. Like, that is the thing.
And yes, I agree, Chad, that tailoring needs to be more accessible. Oh, I wish we could all feel so perfect in our clothes.
That is being communicated, or maybe I think that's the thing that like Piker is trying to communicate, that, I'm a serious person.
Do you think it is or will be effective?
I don't know. That's a good question, because I mean, the other thing, one of the dynamics here is I don't think you can separate this from, racialization and race and racial perceptions. Just use myself as an example, I wear tailoring almost every day, in part because I like it. It's what I feel comfortable in, but in part knowing that I am a Black journalist who I would describe myself as left-leaning. You know, people have their views of that, but Black journalist, left-leaning, often quite critical of mainstream political institutions. Sorry, that's my dog. The tailoring, what it does is it helps disarm people a little bit, disarm them to an extent. Your mind,
which is why Hasan said he's playing to white supremacists. He's trying to make mothers who watch Fox News or grandmas who watch Fox News comfortable. He's trying to make white supremacists comfortable because he's right. It disarms them. Oh, how can he be a terrorist if he's in a nice suit, though? How can he be a bad kid if he's in a nice suit? Only bad kids who sag. Only bad kids who wear big clothes. Only bad kids who wear spikes and gothic, chokers. Those are bad kids. How can a kid in a suit be bad? That's the Nick Fuentes. That's Charlie Kirk. That's why conservatives weaponize the suit. You know what I'm saying? And there's different kinds of suits, by the way. There's the white suit, the black suit. Okay. That the black fashion when it comes to suits specifically, catered not to white people, can be a little too loud for white people because white people don't want you to be loud. So even Hasan had a tailor offered to help him do his suits and wanted to help him fashionize his aesthetic. And he was like, no, I'm not trying to stand out that much. Like I'm not trying to actually I'm trying to blend basically. Here's the video just for context.
Costume designer went through your suits.
So I hear Hasan Piker's got suit autism now. His words, not mine. Hi, hello, I'm Kathleen. I'm a costume designer, seamstress, and overall wardrobe person based out of Toronto. Fashion is politics, and it always has been and always will be.
All right, I'm sold already.
If I was to style Hasan Piker, these are the things that I would add to his wardrobe. He's already a good dresser, he's not completely without help.
Okay.
He's a stylish person. Oh, I made this. So as you can see, he's got a wide range of suits, different colors. I love the seafoam green suit over here. Fabulous. He knows how to put on a tie. He knows how to dress himself as an adult man. I lean into patterns that are smaller and more ornate, similar to patterns from the Ottoman Empire, such as paisley and these blue and red diamonds over here. These are really beautiful.
Bro, this is fire. This is really good. I need more. She's saying I need more vintage ties, which is right. I do. I mean, this one I love. I love this. This one I love too. I love all these ties.
All right, this is where it gets fun, funky, and fresh. It's really important to keep the symbolism of the suit in his dressing because
okay, this is too much. Okay, we've moved beyond. This is wildness. I mean, that's crazy. This is I don't know what's going.
It's the descriptors he's using. So he, instead of saying, oh my God, I love this, it's just not my style, he said, oh, this is crazy. This is beyond. Now he's saying, this is the weirdo clothes and I want the normie clothes. I want to be cool and stand out. But that's what I'm saying. Hasan is a normie weirdo. He's like a weirdo, but he's a normie. And so he doesn't want to be a weirdo. But instead of you know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, oh, that's so nice, but it's not for me. Now conservatives will be like, see, even Hasan isn't even that weird, which is what Hasan wants. He wants to play to white supremacy. He wants to play, not because he is a white supremacist, but because he's kind of doing this thing where he's in one side of his mouth, he'll be dubbed as an extremist and a whatever. And then on the other side of his mouth, he's like, I want grandmas who watch Fox News to think I'm cool. And it's like, okay. I guess, okay.
This is costume territory.
If he still follows the rules of wearing a suit and tie, like a tie thing around his neck, then he can subvert the norm, make a statement with his accessories.
Subvert the norm, see? But that's not what he wants.
Start off, I would lean into the materials and motifs that labor unions and physical laborers utilize in their uniforms, so such as twill, the chainmail, and the grommets. These are all that are used while making workwear. It's very heavy duty.
The bottom right is good, but I don't like the big buttons.
Below, we've got an example of indigenous artwork, indigenous beadwork specifically.
That's dope. The indigenous beadwork is dope. The metal thing.
Yeah, but he can't wear that. The bottom left one, you can barely see it on screen, but he can't wear that. That'd be crazy. Unless indigenous people are allowing him to do it. Kind of crazy. I don't think he could just come out here with indigenous. Maybe it's just an example she's giving, but he can't come out here with an indigenous tie.
That you put on the tie seems kind of crazy too. This is above and beyond. I mean, the whole.
But that's because it could be offensive, not because it's bad, it's great, but it could be offensive.
Whole point is I have to look a little bit more conservative, right? I think what I need to elevate my game with is I already have the tie bar, right? So I need one of the neck bars.
As a material, metal is very socialist as a material.
This is in my brain. Fucking nuts. Oh my God, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That is a no for me. Look, to each their own, you know what I mean? But the zipper tie.
Here's the to each their own is kind of it. But his language is saying those are the weirdos and I'm not the weirdos, right?
Is definitely going to be a no for me.
Okay, so this
His chat says dressing him like he's prepping for the Hunger Games for his district. Okay, that's kind of funny.
stuff I found on eBay and Poshmark. Love this tie. This tie is...
Oh, but then look at this comment. Hasan, I'm being very serious. Would you like me to make you a beaded tie? I'm an indigenous beadwork artist. It would be my honor to create something for you. Okay, so that's okay. If an indigenous person wants to specifically make something for Hasan, that's okay because they're giving him permission, right?
Beautiful.
I
Very Roman Empire-y. But
Oh,
it's Italian.
what? Okay, I'm back in.
He's back in, guys. The trains appeared.
I'm back in. I'm back in. I'm back in. I'm back in on all fronts. Okay, I'm locked in. Everything here is fire. That's incredible. Everything here is incredible.
Here we've got a Soviet silver tie clip, and it even has the little hammer and sickle right here.
I got the USSR tie clip right now.
I think that this pink would look really good with that seafoam green suit that he has. This is stunning. This is on eBay somewhere. Don't buy it. Let him buy it. But yeah, these are all Soviet tie clips. Aside from the bottom right is a New York State education tie clip, I believe.
That one's also
But
fire.
the bottom is a train tie clip because you know who likes trains? Socialists. And you know who also likes trains? People with autism. So this is a socialist
That's a stereotype. Excuse me.
autistic tie clip.
That's the greatest tie clip I've
But yeah,
ever
you can buy
laid
that.
my eyes on.
And last but not least, you're going to hate me for this, but you need to buy compression stockings. You're over 30. You got to buy compression stockings.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. I do have compression stockings though. As a costumer, she's gonna know how to source stuff. That was my major. That was
Okay, so, who knows what he'll decide to do. Chat says, unrelated, I wish people dress more weird. Totally related. Chat says people would wear what they actually want and not what they think would make them look normal. No, I agree. I think that's absolutely related. That I do think one of the perks of being a famous person in a position of privilege is you kind of do get to dress weird without the social consequences because you've already reached the point of being rich enough and privileged enough to do it. That's why Hasan is funny to us because I'm sitting here thinking you make $2 million a year minimum a year, 2 million. Yeah. You're in a position of privilege. You can do whatever you want, but he's still trapped in the bubble of thinking that he's at the mercy of white supremacy. Isn't that interesting? It goes to show you that no matter how famous or rich you get, you're still going to be subjected to feeling like you're not good enough to the oppressor if the oppressor is still the focus of your attention. And that's why I say, no, thank you. I do not dress for the oppressor. I do not think about the oppressor. I'm not interested. Maybe in a survival situation, but it's this weird point though of thinking you're rich and privileged enough to even have the option. It's not like you're going to lose your job. But let me say this though. I also don't want Hasan, because I think I have seen him over the years do this. I don't want him to also wear fashion that he thinks will make people think he's cool. And I think that's Hasan's trap. I think all of his progressive, his worst fashion eras came from wanting to look cool. I don't know if Hasan does anything for himself yet. I don't know if he's learned how to actually do something he wants. Because even if Hasan just wore a t-shirt and jeans and went, honestly, this is how I want to look, I would like that better than him dressing, quote, different or out of pocket, right? But I just want him to dress in a way that says, this is for me. This is how I like it. And I don't want to hear you talk about, oh, it's not good. This is me. But it just, right now, for where he's at in his life, it just feels like a lot of it is a costume, unironically. Okay, here we go. Back to this.
Mind doesn't move towards, if I were wearing my gym clothes, you might think, oh, this is just some guy. Your mind moves towards, oh, this is someone who might be worth taking seriously. It's noteworthy, just to go on the kind of other side of the political spectrum. In the manosphere, a lot of those guys wear suits, bad ones, but suits nonetheless. And I think it's trying to send a similar kind of message. I am someone to take seriously. You eat with your eyes, right? When you're encountering people in media, their presentation matters a great deal to how you're going to be receptive to them. And so to the extent that Hasan is trying to both signal to people in everyday working politics that I am a serious person, to the extent that he's trying to signal to new viewers that I am a serious person, to the extent that he's trying to signal to candidates that he might be interested in that I am a serious person, right? I do think that the wearing suits is probably going to be effective because I think it does work. We can think of other examples in sort of politics today of figures who have made the suit part of their presentation and how it does shape perceptions of them.
Hasan has also explicitly discussed his transition from t-shirts and chains to tailoring. In an interview with Dazed, he said, when I got the first barrage of negative transition from t-shirts and chains to tailoring. In an interview with
I'm sorry. Let me just. What is this? He's chewing on a toothpick. What am I supposed to do with this picture? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the chewing on the toothpick? What am I supposed to do with this? Like, what is the message here? What's the, okay.
Dazed, he said, when I got the first barrage of negative coverage a couple of months ago, and a bunch of think tanks decided I was the real enemy they must forcibly excise from American politics, that's when I started wearing suits. I found one of the best places to hear Piker's reasoning from his own mouth was on the Throwing Fits podcast.
Are you trying to reclaim suits from white supremacists? Like, let's talk about the suits for a second.
See?
A little bit. I think Zoran definitely was impactful in that decision too. But the real reason why I do it is because I got clipped so much on Fox News that I was like, if I'm wearing a suit while I'm saying the things I'm saying, those grandmothers are probably going to be much more receptive.
That's actually really smart. Yeah.
And it's literally worked.
Wow.
Really? It's
That's
actually
crazy.
worked. Yeah. Like I have
Dress for the job you want. It's like why people wear glasses in court.
Yeah.
These dudes both.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to see. That's
Sure,
why I
but you
wear
can
them.
See, there literally has been a positive impact of the suiting in terms of like the things you say being accepted by more like mainstream America.
Yes. 100%.
Fire.
No, I think we're lizard brain people, man. At the end of the day, I think like when they see something that they find to be appealing, they lock in on it.
I agree with him. Like, not that we're lizard brain, but kind of, but that we're so subconsciously moving through the world. Like, so we only have so much, like, I don't even know if this is why I don't believe in free will, really. We're only able to understand what we can understand in the moment. And most of us are not pausing to think, to process. You know what I mean? Most of us are just moving through, judging people and moving on. But that's why I say, like, be introspective. That's why I love philosophy. That's why we do philosophy through pop culture here. That's why I'm trying to say to you, the world isn't thinking. The world is thinking about a lot. We've gotten this far without thinking much. But it's not as a, oh, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you. It's as a compassionate. This is why I say it's easier to let go of the world being the way that it is. And it's easier to let go of your bitter anger and now embrace your activism anger when you realize like, oh, like the world is suffering under the weight of its own ego. Like the world is suffering under the weight of ourselves. And so like once you recognize like we're animals on a planet, we can have a deeper relationship with our biological experience. I would rather grandmas on Fox News see the options they have. I would rather their opinion change because they're like, oh, this person who normally I would dismiss is very, I agree with them. But like, first of all, grandmas on Fox News will not agree with you if you're a leftist. So I don't know what that's about. But two, I do think like I would rather just live aggressively as myself, as I think we all should, and then kind of like prove those stereotypes wrong. But I think the dilemma is like those stereotypes are built from the system. White supremacy puts these stereotypes into play and then compounds on them. So then your children, even at a young age, will start discriminating against people who are dressing different. And that's why like Native Americans were forced to cut their hair and wear suits as a part of assimilation. That's why the word assimilation is negative. It's because it requires you to be a part of society, to throw away everything from your former self. And the truth is you are both of those things. So again, right? I think Hasan's method isn't one that I could take up on, like I could take up. But I think that's because it ethically is bad to me. I think it's immoral. Like, but that's Brittany's view. That doesn't have to be your view. But I think it's unethical to cater to white supremacist grandmas over marginalized people that are actually on the right side of history, right?
You're far more receptive to what I have to say if I'm wearing a suit when I'm saying it.
They go into a little bit more detail about the brands he's wearing, where he gets his stuff if you're trying to steal his look. But the most interesting piece of information to me was that he was inspired by Zoran Mamdani, the Social Democratic mayor of New York, to make this shift. And before we talk about that, I want to thank the sponsor for this video, Factor. I have never particularly gotten into meal prepping. It's been a real issue because especially now that I work from home, I actually make pretty much all my meals, unless I'm eating leftovers, from scratch, like in the moment before I eat it. So I'm cooking and then cleaning 3 meals a day. It's very time consuming. That is what made me excited to try Factor. Factor is a meal delivery service where the food is chef crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to eat. I ordered a couple of different meals, 2 fish options because my husband,
they're just never as good as me. I cook so much better than these packages.
doesn't really like fish, so we don't eat a lot of fish at home, which I find to be a bummer. So doing like a single person meal is kind of the only way for me to have it at home. But I also did get some chicken-based meals because he wanted to try Factor as well. Ultimately, having pre-made meals really did make my days more productive. I didn't have to cook. I didn't have to clean. I do have a dishwasher, so I did wind up putting
It doesn't look half bad, honestly. It looks pretty well balanced. I mean, other than the dead animal in it, but
a lot of the Factor meals on my own plates just for the vibe. But most importantly for me,
yeah, they're too expensive for me too, chat. Yeah, they're outside my budget for sure.
it made it easier to have vegetables in every meal, which I always struggle with when I don't have that much time. If you are interested, go to factor75.com or click the link below and use code PerciaFB to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year.
I love the name Percia. That's a great name.
That's code Percia FB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Percia FB at factor75.com. That offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchases. Now, let's get on with the rest of the video.
Chad says, I never trust a YouTube sponsor. You honestly shouldn't. Guys, I get offered so many sponsorships and I just don't take any because all of them don't care even who you are. They're just trying to get their message out to the most people possible. And genuinely, like, I almost think nothing's ever worth your money. I actually saw a video about this to derail for a second that somebody said, even though I have the money, it feels like nothing's worth spending it on. And that's exactly what inflation is doing to all of us, is like even the things that felt like they were worth spending our money on don't even feel that way anymore. And trust me, as somebody who's getting back into her hobbies and as somebody who's doing art again, like I really like it. And also like it's insane how expensive everything is. It's stupid.
Yeah. So Piker says he was inspired by the fact that Zoran Mamdani is always wearing suits. And you have to remember, at the very beginning of his campaign, Zoran Mamdani was a pretty unlikely and unconventional candidate. And when he first started campaigning, you could see him wearing zip-up work jackets from Only New York. He would wear traditional kurtas or just like a yellow sweater that he really liked. But at some point during his campaign, he starts wearing suits. He starts wearing fairly everyday, unremarkable suit supply suits. And
see, this is the question. When I talk about like presenting well, I mean like your style, but nice. The thing is like, what does it say about the world that we have to conform to white supremacy in order to be chosen? And this is why I say like, isn't there a space? There isn't, but shouldn't there be a space where we get to dress in our cultural clothes and or exaggerated clothes or loud clothes, but look professional? I think so. I would like that to be true. I would like to think we could have a president who has pink hair that's styled very nicely. I would like to live in that world. But right now we don't live in that world. And it's certainly not going to happen in a place where these people are trying to not scare the white supremacists, you know? And again, this goes back down to, this is why I can't be in politics, because I would have to silence my authenticity to be in politics. And like, how boring is that? That's why philosophers are the people that they are, because at least philosophy allows us to be wild and crazy and free. Politics doesn't. Politics is where good people go to die because it requires assimilation and conforming that I just think comes at the expense of marginalized people.
He has maintained this look as mayor. Now compare that choice to another political longshot, political outsider, Graham Plattner, who was the Democratic nominee to represent Maine in the U.S. Senate. To be clear, the interview that I did with Jamelle was recorded before his campaign ended, but obviously we know now that he has left the race in disgrace. I do think he's still an interesting comparison because during his campaign, he was positioned very similarly.
He very specifically marketed
to Mamdani as a choice for voters who are sick of the Democratic establishment. Plattner and Mamdani actually shared a media strategist and image maker, Morris Katz, but their wardrobe styling could not have been more different during their campaigns.
Chad said, are suits only for white supremacists? No, but there is a very specific type of white supremacy that plays into this conversation, a very specific type of suit that appeals to white supremacy. There's also this idea that suits do come and have a history from specific parts of the world. And so you gotta have to put it together of like, where did I learn this thing? How was I told to like it? How does this fashion show up specifically? So check out, we'll derail for like a second. Look at this video here.
Japanese fashion and Italian fashion. But what about Congolese fashion? If you've been following the World Cup at all, you might have seen DR Congo's national team arrive in the US looking dapper as hell. Perfectly channeled.
Okay, like look at the uniqueness, look at the like Hasan could never. And also like where do suits come from and how were the Congolese, impacted by white supremacy or colonialism? And you have to think about like the aesthetic of it, but like, yeah, could we have a US president that looks this good? Yeah, we could, right? Like, so again, when we talk about fashion and what is what, it very much depends.
Their nickname, the Leopards, rocking outfits from emerging designer Alvin Jr. Mack. And that reminded me of the rich and fascinating history of the Congo when it comes to the place of fashion in their culture. Because in the Congo, dressing well isn't just about clothes. There's a whole culture and philosophy around it called la sape. If you've ever seen photos of boldly dressed men and women strutting the streets of Congo, this is what it's about. La sape stands for Société des ambianceurs et des personnes élégantes, which translates to the Society of Ambience Makers and Elegant People. And the members of this movement are called sapeurs. But unlike most other cultures where being fashionable requires some discretionary income and is typically not something the lower class spends much on, in the Congo, the sapeurs are very much ordinary people. We're talking modest, blue-collar professions such as taxi drivers, carpenters, electricians who work their blue-collar jobs jobs by day and turn into the most stylish dandies at night. They will save for months, sometimes years, to get their hands on a piece from a big fashion house. Then they put it on and they walk through their neighborhood like royalty, cane in hand, cigar in another, with an eclectic color combo that they somehow pull off. And despite often living in economically poor areas, the sapeurs are treated like local celebrities and are deeply respected for the positivity they bring to their neighborhoods.
It just reminds me so much of queer culture and like drag culture and also like the fashion of it all. Like some of the most impoverished queer people brought the best fashion to our communities. And I don't know how much it relates, but it just reminds me so much of that. Like if you you watch certain like documentaries about queer people, this just reminds me of it.
But here's the thing. All of this isn't just about clothes. La Sape is rooted in something bigger. The movement really began taking shape in the early 20th century, during the colonial era in the Congo, when a man named André Matsois, who went to Paris in the 1920s, immersed himself in French fashion and came back to Brazzaville dressed impeccably. This was a time where Congolese people were expected to be invisible, to labor and then disappear. So showing up dressed that elegantly was a big statement and a subtle form of resistance and self-empowerment. Workers across both Congos then began adopting and reinterpreting the attire of the French and Belgian colonizers. This was their way of claiming respect and express self-worth when it was otherwise denied. And what's interesting is that La Sape has its own internal code. The culture values specific rules, such as combining no more than 3 primary colors and walking with a proud theatrical strut, almost like a performance. And the color combinations are painter-like. Magenta next to cobalt, canary yellow with forest
Wonderful.
green. Things that sound wrong on paper, but they make it look incredible in person. And it's great to see that this spirit is still very much alive. When the Congolese team touched down for the World Cup, I think they made a hell of an entrance, and they embodied that spirit of La Sape beautifully.
So I just thought that was really cool. You guys can check out his other content if you liked this video. This is why I have, like, again, I go down like these bubbles on the internet where I'm like, oh, fashion, expression, like, oh, so people don't even know. I mean, there was somebody arguing in my chat. I had to block them eventually. Somebody arguing in my chat that punishment, they don't understand how punishment comes from white supremacy and prison systems and all this other stuff. Like, people just don't know what's going on. So when they hear me say like, oh yeah, suits have a tie to white supremacy, they're like, Brittany's so stupid. What is Brittany talking about? Like, again, just because you guys don't know doesn't mean the rest of us don't know. And there's lots I don't know about. But you know what I do? I research. I get curious. I go down rabbit holes. I see one video and I go, oh, interesting. And now I'm showing you this full circle event where, like, I already brought up examples, exactly these. And the same person I brought up as an example is now being interviewed. And, like, this video isn't alone. So, again, you want to talk about credibility? You want to talk about, like, oh, being judged for credibility?
Unlike Mamdani's clean-cut millennial suit,
Oh, wait, Discord said something really good. I feel like there's a big racial factor to the appeal of the rugged, dressed-down white man versus Mamdani, who's a brown, low-key, needed the suit to be taken seriously. 100%. White men get to look blue-collar and still be taken seriously as hard workers, but nobody else.
Plattner had scruffy facial hair. He liked blue-collar mainstays. He wore trucker hats and Carhartt jackets.
Yeah, I think one of the big distinctions is ideology. Not that Graham Plattner, he's quite a liberal, populist liberal candidate, but that Mamdani, as a member of Democratic Socialists of America, as a self-described Democratic Socialist, is a representative of an ideological tendency that still attracts a lot of suspicion in the United States, even in a place like New York. And so one thing I think the suit does is it does mainstream him. It does send this message of, I am a socialist, and a socialist is a guy who wears a business suit, right? I am a socialist, and a socialist is a guy who is, you could find walking in a financial district.
It normalizes it.
Right. It normalizes the political identity. I think for Mamdani too, he's sort of trying to call back, and he does this throughout all his political rhetoric. He's calling back to traditions of municipal socialism from the early 20th century, that so-called sewer socialist, who very much likewise presented themselves not as radicals, but as competent administrators of the city. We can make the sewer system work. We can clean up the police department. We can do all these practical things that will improve your life. And we do it as socialists. And so there's actually this tradition, right, of politicians with radical politics or radical adjacent politics who self-consciously present themselves in the most sort of bourgeois way possible to sort of diffuse concerns that the radicalism is bohemian, standing against common convention. There's a phrase, and I can never remember where it comes from, but it's a line from British politics. It's Tory men and Whig measures, right? So the public wants Tory men, wants people who are traditionalist and conventional and do not scare them and do not seem like they're going to upset established ways. But they also want Whig measures, activist government to improve their lives. And for Mamdani, I think he's basically trying to do that, present himself as a Tory man, although this is complicated somewhat by his religious background, by his ethnicity, but he's a Tory man offering Whig measures. Platter's a bit different because I do think that being a white man buys you a lot of leeway, because almost like, not to sound like, an academic, right? But like the semiotics of being a white man are such that people look at you and they kind of just assume that you are mainstream. One of, I'm older than you, but not that much older than you, but I'm going to sound like I'm an old man now. Back in the 2012 election, way back when, 2012 election, Obama-Romney, one of the persistent things about that race is that Obama was always perceived in the public as more liberal than he was, and Mitt Romney was perceived as more moderate than he was. And, people who are, I think, professional political journalists.
Wait, I want to hear that again.
As more moderate than he was perceived in the public as more liberal than he was, and Mitt Romney was perceived as more moderate than he was. And, people who are, I think, professional political journalists tend to overrate the extent to which ordinary voters can actually even read and understand ideology. Like, I don't think they can.
Look, I don't want to be that girly because, I didn't go to academia, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that is so true about everything we do. Like, I take my profession very seriously at this stage of my life. And I am so serious about it that I don't know how to tell sometimes the people that are watching my content, like on the general YouTube sphere who find my content. I don't know how to explain to them that, like, you have no idea that you are so media literate. Like, you have no clue that, like, there are so many layers to this. And why would you? Like, why would you? Chad said, why is that? Because listen to me when I say this again. You do not have to know anything about the world to have a very happy life. You can literally never watch the news, never read a book. You can basically get by all your life without ever doing anything. And I think people don't know that because people think like, well, how could I have survived this long if I was stupid or if I didn't have the knowledge or if I wasn't educated? Easily. And it's not that you're intellectually like, it's not that. It's like there's so little we need as humans to live that you actually get by pretty well. And most people will do that. And so this is why I say, like, most people are really content in the life they're living. Even if they complain about it every day, they're actually pretty happy. They just don't know it. And then the outliers, I think that's where we become activists. I mean, how much of an outlier do you have to be that you're an activist, right? Or you're an outlier, you're online making posts or you're making videos. Like, I don't think people on the internet understand how uniquely of an outlier they are. Or people who are always on comment sections, like, they live online, but like their regular life, they're not actually changing. So again, I want you to look at this space as a place you go to get tools to take back to your real life, right? Not a space you go to have your real life, but a space you go to like a class. This is like a class, and what you learned in stream today, you take back to your real life, okay? And I say this even, amongst my own siblings, like some of them, I can't explain to you how ignorant they are, but they're basically doing okay. Their life is pretty good. They're basically middle class. They're struggling the rest of like everybody else, but not uniquely. Their life is pretty good. And they never have to crack a book open. They'll never have to understand anything. They don't even understand my job. They barely understand what I do for a living. And they don't have to understand it to have a basically good life. Okay? So that's why I think it is. And I don't blame people. I think sometimes I wish people who were into these topics would understand that better without thinking they're like smarter or better than everyone else. The irony is that human beings are pretty content with very little, but I think you deserve a lot more. I think you deserve to not worry about how much your groceries are. And I think you deserve to go to bed feeling safe. And I think you should set the standard higher for what you get without it coming at the expense of others. But I think we would be, because look, if the world was free and there was no war and nothing scary, I think most of us would live a very chill life. I think most of us would just like be the chillest, the most ordinary, the most chill. But I think because the world is the way that it is, we have to like do so much. And then it looks like we're doing so much. But even the people who are doing so much, like, is their quality of life as good as somebody who's like sleeping in a hammock all day? How much great, like, there's a balance is what I'm trying to say.
I think they're making judgments based largely off race, gender, and affect. And so in the case of Mitt Romney, who had a very radical policy platform, there was a very famous or infamous focus group where the focus group organizers just read to the participants a straightforward description of the Romney economic plan, which was like slashing taxes to the bone, unraveling Medicare and Medicaid, privatizing Social Security, and they didn't believe it. They're like, well, that's too crazy. That's too crazy. Mitt Romney doesn't seem like a guy who'd do that, right? They're looking at who he is, a kind of a staid businessman with a very boring affect, and then they're jumping from there. They're using that to inform their sense of how extreme or not extreme he might be. So how does a white man signal to voters that, in fact, I am going to unsettle things? Where one way to do that is to reject the traditional dress of white male politicians, is to reject the business suit, is to reject the stiff dress shirt with the rolled up cuffs, and to instead, as you note, adopt a more blue collar wardrobe. The guy's professional.
Yeah, see, Hasan could not pull off that look because God knows this man does not leave his house. He's a streamer all day, so he can't pretend he's a blue collar worker. Like Hasan can't pretend. He has no calluses on those hands, guaranteed, okay? And so Hasan can't do that. So he has to go the opposite direction of being taken seriously. He has to wear a suit because otherwise, he can't pull off the hardworking father of two. He can't pull that off.
Actually, an oyster farmer, so he wears like a Siemens Henley, I think, most of the time, and then a pair of jeans. What that allows you to do is position yourself a little bit against type.
Yeah, I saw this. Chat says there was a streamer who was in a Ukrainian's Uber, and she asked him if Ukraine was a part of Russia. And her chat had to tell her there was a war, and she didn't know. And she's very popular. She seems like a sweet girl and everything. These are really rich kids. These kids are making so much money on Streamer University. They have millions of followers, and she had no fucking clue. That's what I'm saying. Like, God bless, we live in a world, and she's a woman of color. Like, that's the irony. Like, a lot of these young kids are becoming very famous and rich. They will be, and they were primarily Black kids at Streamer University, which I love to see. I saw, what's his name? Regency. Is that how you say his username? He covered this, and that was beautiful to see marginalized kids rise to prominence. But isn't it funny how you don't have to know anything to be rich and famous in America? That's the irony of it. But also they are talented in their own ways. That's why I say you can be a talented artist, you can be a talented person, you can be an amazing person for your community. But if your job is just to get rich and famous, you don't have to know much. If your job is just to have a pretty stable life, you don't got to know that much. And I know this because look at all these these white blue collar workers who are making $80,000 to $100,000 a year. My brother, who dropped out of high school, makes an average of $85,000 a year. Okay, he's West Asian, but he really looks like a normal white guy. He's white, but you know what I mean. And he makes $85K a year. He's made that every year out of high school. Because he works in construction or he does he builds patios or some shit. You know what I mean? Is he good at saving his money? No. Is he always in debt? Absolutely. Because he doesn't have the formal education to fucking figure it out. But he's always made good money.
In a way that if Plattner were a woman candidate, were a non-white candidate, I don't think this hypothetical Plattner could dress that way.
Yeah, of course.
Now, okay, hold on. I just want to say something. There was this, and this plays into this actually so well. I'm so glad this is happening because it goes back to this idea of being mediocre that people forget is also aspirational. Because people forget most of us will be mediocre. So Hasan Piker is not interested in being mediocre, right? He is not interested in being just a streamer. He wants to be the streamer. But that's the thing. That story is not most people's stories, right? Check this out.
Very likely that your life never takes off. Statistically, most lives don't. Most people never write the novel. They never start the business. They never make the amount of money or get the recognition that they want or any of that. And it's not because people crash or burn or have some sort of horrible tragedy happen to them. It's just because life turns out to be more ordinary than we thought. But we have no story for this. All the stories we have are about the person who makes it or the person who crashes and burns. We don't have a story for the most likely outcome of most people's life, which is just ordinary, except for Wallace Stegner. In his novel Crossing to Safety, he follows two couples over the course of a life, two couples who are best best friends. And one of the characters, his name is Sid, wants to be a poet. And listen, he's an okay poet. He has the things necessary to maybe be a great poet, but it just never happens for him. Maybe he's missing the talent or the passion's not there, but for whatever reason, Sid ends up being an English professor. Not even like a really great one, just like a pretty ordinary English professor. And Stegner lets us watch him carry this failure for decades. I mean, he never gives him the breakthrough he wants, and he also never makes him crash and burn because of his like ambition or anything. But by the rubric that Sid created for himself when he was in his 20s about what he wanted to be, he's failing on every front. And that is the question that this novel makes us ask ourselves. It's who set the rubric for your life? Who set the measure?
Exactly, chat saying this is why I dislike Diary of the CEO. He's selling exceptionalism to everyone. By definition, that's impossible. 1000%. And just because you're not exceptional doesn't mean you don't deserve a well-lived life. This is the conversation that happens with streamers when streamers says anyone can be a millionaire. Yeah, but if everyone's rich who's working at McDonald's. But this is why I say working at McDonald's is perfectly a decent job. You should be making a livable wage working at McDonald's. Why should I have to be exceptional? Can't I just live an ordinary life? That's what I'm saying. What is so wrong with being a middle-class YouTuber? I love being a middle-class YouTuber. I love being an ordinary YouTuber. I do not, people always accuse me of wanting Hasan Piker's job. Girl, if you think I couldn't try to take it if I wanted to. That's the thing, is like, that's what I'm saying about these people. These people are so obsessed with being famous and so obsessed with being rich and so obsessed with being the guy. They assume everybody wants it. And they forget about the rest of us who are just so happy and content with having a ordinary life. How sacred is my ordinary life in which I am married to the love of my life. I'm spending my cat's, last moments with her. I'm calling my friends and family. I'm eating our food. I'm, listening to music. I'm bonding with my loved ones. Like, what is more of a win than having enough money to spend time with your family and friends, having enough money to pay your bills? Like, I don't need to be exceptional. I want to live a joyful, ordinary life. I don't want people to remember me, and I don't want to be famous. But it's like we don't even think about how important those people are. That's the backbone of humanity. The backbone of the world is the people whose names you will never know. Who builds society? Those people. It's not the people who are exceptional. We remember their names. It's the people whose names you'll never know. Think about the lockdown and just think about all these necessary jobs, right? These people who are those people? Well, here we go.
Of your life. And if it was you, how old were you when you set that measure? You see, here's the thing. Most of us are still grading our lives on a rubric we wrote when we were 16.
And obviously, I mean exceptional in relation to capitalism. I am exceptional in relation to liberating my spirit from this oppressive world. But I'm not exceptional when it comes to how much money I'm making. But that's only because I don't want to be exceptional under the framework of capitalism. I don't want to be exceptional under the framework of white supremacy. I don't want to be exceptional under the patriarchal framework. So be very careful with what kind of exceptional you even strive to be. But I am exceptional in a philosophical way. But like, that just means that my ordinary life is beautiful and liberated. That's what it means to be exceptional philosophically in my mind.
Or 18 or even 20. Back before we knew how mortgages worked, or how hard it was to raise toddlers, or how hard it was to experience having a parent get sick, or how tired you would be at 9 p.m.
Well, okay, that's a childhood that I didn't have because I knew all of those things before that time, but nice that you don't have to.
That version of you made promises to this version of you that this version of you can't keep. What's interesting is that...
Okay, that's the important part that I want to talk to you about, is when your younger self makes a futuristic plan for a version of yourself that doesn't end up existing. Exactly going back to what I always tell you, my therapist told me, instead of trying to get the life you thought you were supposed to have, you should try to have a life that's joyful. Okay? And that's the life that I ended up having. Was not the life that I thought I was supposed to have, but the life that I knew would make me joyful. Okay, now before we move on, because I want to go back to the original video, this is Yona, I think her name is, and she's the one who had the run-in with the Ukrainian Uber driver.
Where are you from?
Ukrainian.
Oh, nice. Like London?
No, I'm Ukrainian.
He says Ukrainian. She goes, oh, nice. London?
From Ukraine.
Oh, I don't really know my geography.
Ukraine is like Central Europe.
Oh. Russia. Like kind of like Russia?
Luckily, no.
Oh, no. Okay.
So she apologized. She felt pretty embarrassed about it, I think. And so she did apologize. I don't know what the apology is. Is this her, Yona J? 6 million followers. Jesus, love of Christ. 6 million followers. 6 million followers. That's all I'm saying. God bless her and her success. I hope she's happy. 6 million followers. The world is a reflection of us as a whole. I'm just saying, I'm sure kids mostly make her famous. I hope she's happy. You know what I mean? But like, ooh. 6 million. That's what I'm saying. Hasan Piker's the guy. our radical, like liberatory movements made Hasan Piker the guy. It's just interesting who we make famous. And I'm not blaming her. She's a product of that. You know what I mean? So, okay. So I'm sure, she's worked anyway. Okay.
Of course, there are progressive white male candidates who wear suits during their campaigns. One midterm hopeful that comes to mind is James Tallarico, who is the Democratic nominee running to represent Texas in the U.S. Senate. Though James Tallarico wears a suit mostly, I think it's because he has a baby face.
I was just about to say, he looks.
And yes, Chad, I agree. It wasn't malicious. She was trying to be nice and make small talk. But I'm saying the road to hell is paved in good intentions. So be careful with your intention to be kind, because exactly why, you know what I'm saying? I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming the system. I'm blaming the frameworks. I'm not even blaming. I'm just saying it's happening. I'm just saying observe your environment and see what happens. But this is why I say sometimes there are more neutral questions to ask. Like, there are better questions to ask, other ways. And then again, it's not her. It's the world that made her. It's also the world that made her famous. 6 million followers. You know what I mean? That's no joke.
Like a little kid. he looks like a little baby, and so I think
you have to think about the other aspects of what's going on.
I think that's exactly right. I think for Tallarico, it's to age him up somewhat.
Yeah. Now, James Tallarico is not a social democrat like Zoran Mamdani. He could reasonably be described as a populist, not unlike Graham Plattner or John Fetterman. Fetterman is, of course, that senator from Pennsylvania who's famous for always wanting to wear a hoodie and shorts, which it made other people in the Senate so mad.
Chad brought up earlier that a black guy could never get away with that. No, a black man could never wear a hoodie and shorts. I mean, he could try, and I think it would be very wholesome and welcoming to a lot of communities, but I also think it would be completely rejected by a big part of white America,
That they passed a bipartisan resolution requiring that business attire be worn on the floor of the Senate, which for men shall include a coat, tie, and slacks or other long pants. It does make sense to me that someone who is outside of and working against the political mainstream would want to dress in a way that reflects that. But populism can mean a lot of different things. It can manifest in a lot of different ways.
Populism is one of those words that is unfortunately amorphous and can be used in many different ways. Nonetheless, I think you can describe Trump as a populist once you recognize that populism isn't an ideology, but a style of doing politics. And so ideologically, since he has one, Donald Trump is this sort of avatar for a hierarchical, white supremacist, misogynist, politics of domination. And then he pursues that through populist means, right? He posits that there is a singular people who are being put upon by both elites at the top and the undeserving at the bottom, that the people are the only legitimate people. And so that's a category that excludes, people who belong to the country, belong to the polity, but may not be within the people as a political construct. That's sort of classic populism. And that the solutions to the problems of the people is found in, sticking it to either the people at the top or the people at the bottom. And that those solutions are simple. They're simple attempts at sort of, taking from those who don't deserve it and giving it to those who do. And all of that's classic populist stylings. I mean, the wrinkle there, because Trump wears these terrible business suits, but he wears these suits. One of them, I think, the message Trump is sending to the public, and especially to male voters, to men, is saying, I am kind of a wealthy patriarch. This is how wealthy patriarchs dress. And if you want to be a wealthy patriarch, you want to emulate me. Yeah. Or you can vote for me, and you can get some of that wealthy patriarch pixie dust, and it'll make you like that as well. It'll trickle down. I want to make a quick point about Fetterman, because Fetterman is a really interesting case of someone who very aggressively even rejects kind of the traditional clothing of politics and has himself very centrist, non-radical politics. He is too performing a kind of populism, performing a kind of contempt for the system. But I think I think he is a fine example of how one must be wary of how much you read into these aesthetic choices.
It's a veneer.
It can very much be a veneer. And I'm not even sure in his case that it's all that sophisticated. I kind of think he's a doofus.
I kind of think he just wanted to wear hoodies. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's going on with him. But it's not hard to find people regretting not supporting Conor Lamb in that primary, which would have been 2022, and supporting Fetterman because Fetterman looked like the kind of guy who would be, more.
That's why I say these liberal men who look a particular way and they look like the code, they look like the right aesthetic. And then you get to know them and you're like, oh, see, you're trying to signal safety, but you're using it as a way to manipulate. And that's why Hasan Piker can come off that way. but no different than Vosh or Destiny or any of these guys who like look like, oh, they're kind of gamer boys and they're kind of, sometimes they have blue hair and sometimes they're, oh, they don't look very threatening or traditional. And then Hasan is so typically attractive that people will be like, oh, he's so pretty though. How bad can he be? Which is the problem here. So then it's like a mixture of utilizing all of those things. Again, it's like a whether they know it or not, they have used it to weaponize. Like they have absolutely used it. And it is a question of like, can they be trusted if they're utilizing it and wielding this weapon? And that's the question. Now you might say, okay, Brittany, you want Hasan to like look less attractive? Well, he shaved his beard recently, so mission accomplished. You know what I'm saying? That was a joke. That was a joke. Okay, even his mother didn't like it. It was a little bit of a joke. But the point is that it's not that I want him to look less attractive. I want him to recognize the power that he has in the way that he appears. And I want him to acknowledge how much, here, let me show you the no beard.
Kept my comments to myself. I kept my comments to myself. Instead of going live, what is happening? Hello. Instead of going live, I just, I left these nuts.
He literally looks 22. He's 35, but now he looks 22. It's kind of funny. But anyways, it doesn't matter. I don't know why he shaved it. I don't know. But listen, I would love it in the same way that we have white skin and should recognize that we're not going to be pulled over for being white. I wish pretty people would recognize how much they're not being pulled over because they're pretty. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I think you should. That's how powerful pretty privilege is. Pretty privilege is very related to white supremacy. Like it is related to ableism. It's related to discrimination against disabled people. Like it is so related to white supremacy. It's so serious. Pretty privilege. And so, yeah, I would just like him to acknowledge it or like pay attention to it, I guess.
Ideologically radical, or at least like liberal in a way that would not be so conventional. And as it turns,
and by the way, his body, his choice. If he wants a shaved beard, he's handsome, he can pull it off. Obviously, I do like a beard on a person, but what do my preferences even matter? I would love a beard on myself if I could grow it out. You know what I mean? But anyways,
that is not the case. Yeah. You have to pair, if you're taking signals from how people dress, you do have to pair it with like what they actually say and what they actually do.
Did the Hasan Piker thing like kind of jump out to you at all, or you kind of just saw it and you were like, oh, he's wearing suits now?
I know I saw it. And in one of my group chats with my friends, I was like, yeah, Hasan's wearing suits these days. Because I don't follow his stream, so I think I saw like an image or a photo somewhere. Maybe he was at a rally and I noticed that he was wearing a suit. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I noticed he was wearing a suit. I noticed it was sort of a fashiony suit. I noticed he was wearing jewelry, and I was like, that's interesting. And I do think, just to kind of wrap things up, I do think it represents, as you suggested, Piker entering the world of more serious politics, or rather.
Wait. Chat says he was so mad that people didn't like him clean shaven. It was annoying. I agree. He just kept saying chat was making him mad. And it was like, why are you bothered? I would have blocked every single person. Hasan should block every single person who tells him they don't like his beard. How fucking rude. I would never tell him to his face I don't like his beard. Like, what the fuck do I have? It's none of my fucking business if he has a beard. Do you know what I mean? How fucking rude, bro. Do not come on my stream and tell me you don't like the way I look. You can go fuck yourselves with that commentary. No, that's so fucking rude. He should block every single person that commented on his beard. Every single one of you. How rude. I would never say that to someone's face. It's one thing to make a joke. Okay, I'm making a joke. He looks very handsome. Hasan looks very handsome. I like that he's clean shaven. If he feels good in it, I support him. Okay? No, but seriously, we should not be commenting on people's looks. That was like, I don't ever want to play into that narrative. He has every reason to be upset with it. How rude.
For people taking him seriously as a political actor.
The funny thing about it, I'm sure maybe you have or haven't seen this, but a lot of leftists or communists.
Oh, and by the way he looks personally, none of my business. The way he dresses politically, my business. So just to talk about it, the reason I'm commenting on how he looks with his suits is because it's political. It's none of my business what he does with his shaved hair if it's not political. If him shaving his beard is personal, love it for you, King. None of my business. Okay? But if he told me he shaved his beard because the beard was giving too Middle Eastern or too West Asian, well, then I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But, okay? So I do think that's different. Okay? This is actually so important and related to all of this. How you look matters. It's not always political, but it can be influenced by politics. It's like shaving your legs. I'm always on TikTok where there's discourse about shaving legs. Yes, if you shave your legs, it can be a part of patriarchy, or it cannot be a part of patriarchy. If you haven't done the work to introspect about why you shave your legs, you won't know. You won't actually know if it's patriarchy or not patriarchy. Okay? but you have to deconstruct it, right?
Don't like Hasan Piker. And like you were saying, because a lot of leftists or communists don't like Hasan Piker. And like you were saying, because this suit is this symbol of the bourgeois, and he has enriched himself through the labor of his Twitch streaming, it does also sort of separate him from his base to a certain degree, who want him to be an anarchist, who want, they almost want a Fetterman. Like, they want someone who doesn't care and who sticks it to the man and who doesn't play by any rules. And they think that's better. But it's a little bit, it's like that's the same thing when Zorn went to meet with Donald Trump. And
they want the image of a Fetterman because Fetterman very much cared. And Fetterman played into something via marketing. Fetterman wasn't a rebel. Fetterman did nothing rebellious in his position of power.
We're like shaking hands and like generally copacetic. How much do you want to play by someone else's rules to get what you need, but maintain a sense of like trustworthiness for the people who actually do
Sorry, I didn't mean the group she was talking about, but I meant the image of Fetterman made people feel like they were getting a rebel.
Want you to be a radical.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's such a larger conversation about what specifically is leftism. Is it a political tendency aimed at trying to attain power and using it? Or is it kind of a bohemian cultural formation, right? Like, is it basically a subculture? Because I think if you view it as a subculture, or if you view the subculture as tied tightly to the pop.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Chesed, I get your point. I meant more like he was saying the chat is the reason his mood is low again after the holiday, not the fact that he doesn't seek professional help ever. I get how I didn't sound like that's what I was saying. No, that is what you're saying, and you're wrong. Respectfully, that is such a horrible take. Guys, I am a streamer. I'm telling you right now, my partner knows when work is bad. He's like, your whole mood has shifted. I was like, my comment section's crazy, bro. Guys, it impacts us mentally. I don't know what to tell you. It is very hard to read thousands of messages about people saying things that are so fucked up about you. They're so wrong. 100%, you impact people you're watching. We're people. No, I'm telling you right now, of course he's going to be impacted. Even if he had a therapist, it would still impact him. It impacts daily workers every day. They walk in and they have to deal with bad customers. It doesn't matter if you have a therapist. I think that's important, but it's very hard. It's very hard to wake up. Sometimes comment sections ruin my whole fucking day. I'm not even kidding you. Sometimes I have to go meditate and put my phone down because I'm sitting here putting my whole heart and soul into my work only to have comment sections. Listen, when streamers make content about me, way easier to digest because it's a face, it's a person I can combat with. It's like I can do something about this. When it's random usernames and like these people have so much opinion about you, it's like working at any service job, like a rando customer coming in and saying like demanding something of you. So no, I actually empathize deeply with Hasan in this way. And I honestly think for our mental health, one day I will stop reading the comments. Just a heads up, one day for my mental health, if I ever get bigger than I am now, I will stop reading the comments. It is so bad in there. It's like, it is so mentally bad. I don't even know how to explain it to you guys. So no, I do not blame Hasan for saying, hey, you guys are really bringing me down. I just got back from vacation. I would not deal with I would not read my comment section if I was Hasan Piker. I understand he reads his stream. And even then, I don't even know if I would read my stream. That much feedback in that short of time? So anyways, all I'm saying is like, I hear you. I think even if he had a therapist, which I do recommend, I still think it would be intense. It would still be very hard because therapy, even meditation, it helps center you, but you still got to go back into the pit of hell, which is getting so much feedback every day. It gets to you.
Politics, then the discontent with sort of visual Piker wearing suits, right? Visual symbols of you trying to work yourself into kind of mainstream electoral politics. That discontent makes a lot of sense because it's sort of like, yeah, you're selling out, right? But if your leftism is primarily trying to win power wherever you can, then you don't see that as like a concession. You see that as sort of like a necessary step of trying to win power, right? And I think I think I'm not super plugged in to internal struggles amongst the nation's leftists, but to the extent that I am, I do think.
Yeah, because he's more of a lib. And Chet said a random customer harassing and verbally abusing you. Imagine you work at like McDonald's, or I worked at the deli growing up, and imagine a customer comes in every day and makes commentary about, oh, I've been watching you a long time. Here's all the things she does wrong. Here are all the ways she came to work. Look at how she looks today. And I have to read it. You know, it's one thing to talk amongst your friends. It's one thing because I don't have to watch a video if somebody makes it about me. If somebody makes a video about me, I don't have to watch it. But if you're in my comment section and I review my comment section, I'm going to see it. So when you leave comments on people's videos, just remember they might see it. Hasan Piker will probably never see my videos. And that's why I don't feel as like, I feel okay stating my opinion. I also try to have balance. But you know what I mean, right? Chet says, I don't know. I just thought he seemed very triggered just after starting stream. So I thought therapy is what helps me not get triggered so easy. I wasn't trying to be mean. I know that you're not trying to be mean. I just think like, I also don't want people like, I know that, but therapy isn't an end all be all. It can't fix the verbal abuse. Therapy isn't going to help you fix 1,000 people a day telling you you look fat today or you look bad today. And then, you know, Hasan has eating disorder issues and, you know, he feels bad about how he looks. And then, you know, those things will trigger him, which is why we can't be fat phobic in the world because it's triggering for people. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't expect, and the strongest amongst us will crumble. The most strong, the most capable, the most resilient will crumble under the pressure of that much negative feedback that is so bad faith. And this is why I'm telling you, you cannot out therapy abuse. You cannot say, I'm going to therapy, so when I go home to my husband who beats me, his punches don't hurt as bad. That's what I'm saying. Hasan, all of us, we go into it, you know, everyone who works with customers, everyone who does customer service walks into a minefield every fucking day, and then we still have to deal with it. Okay, so just, that's, you know, I want you to think about it that way, right? Still thinking, chat says, still thinking about a customer sexually harassing me because I'm always nice and make gross comments about how I must be good in bed. You said it, my manager didn't do shit. Oh yeah, I've gotten those comments in customer service as well. Yep. Chat says, that's why I put effort into my comments. Someone somewhere might read it. Exactly. Right. Chat says, getting better at withstanding lashes doesn't mean you're still not getting lashed. Exactly. So just, you know, something to think about.
An emerging division is simply.
Also, I'm kind of sure at this point, somebody is going to watch this clip who thinks like, oh, I'm a Hasan hater. Brittany's a Hasan hater. I'm not a Hasan hater. Get a job. Okay. I'm just not a Hasan simp. I have a job. You know what I mean? I'm not a Hasan hater. I'll give him flowers when he does something good, and I'll call him out when I feel like he's not doing something good. But I'm not going to stop being empathetic to Hasan's struggle because I disagree with him about some shit. You know what I mean?
Between those who are like, we have to make ourselves more friendly to the normies, right? That like victory, in a sense, is when the most suburban soccer mom you can imagine identifies herself as a socialist. Then you know you're winning, right? Then you know that like if you've diffused whatever stigma attaches to the politics. But then that means that if you accomplish that, then it's no longer a subculture. It's just another thing in the mainstream. And so I think it's very much leftists who, you know, I may be exaggerating a bit, but I think the goal is to win elections, and it's to win elections by appealing to people you would identify as political normies, in part because those are, you know, if you're contesting within the Democratic Party, those are most of the voters. And then between folks who reject electoralism and reject all the moves you have to make to accommodate electoralism, and who prefer, you know.
See, this is all about winning. You see how there's no like ethics or philosophy or moral conversations. It's all about winning elections. They're not talking about the ethical implications. They're not talking about the moral implications. They're not talking about what does it mean to signal to white supremacy. This is why I love philosophy, because I love ethics, but politics is not about what is ethical. It pretends to be, but it isn't. Ultimately, it's what's going to win votes.
An extremely radical form of political action that also is tied up in like a subculture, a particular subculture, particular ways of dress, and particular ways of communicating, and all those sorts of things. I mean, if I had to give a read on Piker, I mean, the interesting thing is the sort of the suits he wears, the jewelry he wears with the suits, like all the accessories, do kind of say, right, that like, yeah, I'm in this, but I'm not of this, you know, and that's interesting to me. And I feel like if you notice him starting to move away from the kind of accessories he currently uses and towards more kind of traditional looking business suits, it's also going to send a particular message.
By any means necessary. God forbid someone has to wear a suit.
Hey, I mean, by any means necessary, Malcolm X is wearing a suit in that photo.
There you go. Thank you so much for watching Close Our Political. Don't let anyone ever tell you different. And
True.
Of course, thank you again to Jamelle for being on the show. He was excellent, and I hope he comes back. Do you ever see
Did you say Jamelle or Jamel? It's Jamelle. There's no, I don't know.
someone who's running a race and be like, oh, they need an image redux? They need an image consultant?
I mean, personally, I would, if I were like advising JD Vance or something, I would be like, you got to cool it on all the eyeshadow and the makeup. Like,
Okay, yeah.
Wait, it's not real eyeshadow. Isn't that just his eyes? Let's see. Hasan literally said he copied off the Go Jamelle. Oh my God, shut up. I would believe it, actually. It's going to break your heart that you did not find this clip, but when Hasan first started wearing suits, somebody accused him of basically copying Nick Fuentes. In response to the accusation, he said, if anything, he's ripping off Jamelle. Shut up. Full circle. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I really love this video. I'm glad it came up on my feed, and it just like reinforces what I said like a month ago or something when I covered this topic myself. And everyone's like, "What is Brittany talking about? What is Brittany? What about what?" It's like, girl, just because you don't hyper focus research till 4 a.m. in the morning about a topic you like doesn't mean the rest of us aren't. Okay, autism for the win. At the end of the day, okay.